your biggest obstacle to reliability best practices. Hey folks, best practices are easy to get your hands on. You know, do a YouTube search, do a Google search. They're everywhere and quite often for free. You know, I've detailed 61 videos on how you don't need investment, you don't need sponsorship. If you take on a waste focus, you can get results rather quickly, and that spurs future investment on your reliability journey. You know, like I said, you can get results beginning in weeks. So for viewers out there, you know, what's stopping you? You know, I have a hypothesis I'll talk about in just a second. This is Joe Kuhn of Lean-Driven Reliability, bridging the gap between best practices and the reality that you live in at your plant every day. First, a story. Just about 1 year ago today, I retired. I retired at the age of 54. I was the plant manager of a massive operations, 1.5 billion in sales, great salary, great job, great people I was working around. But I had something gnawing at me. I wanted to start my own business. I had a passion for reliability and maintenance and doing it different than anybody else has done before, with a lean focus, with a waste focus. I'm not sure if anybody else is doing this, just nobody I deal with. So I'm on this mission, and I believe it's my calling to drive the manufacturing to a better place through best practices, and doing that through the lean and knocking down all obstacles that people have on why they don't start their lean journey. You know, but along the way, when I retired, was contemplating retired, let's say, there were two things that were major decisions for me. One, do I retire? I was only 54. Why not pile up some more money? And number two, do I take a lump sum buyout or take the company pension that was offered me? And my wife asked me a question, and this is from some readings that I've been doing, and I've used it a lot on her, so she turns it around and uses it on me. It says, what would you do if you weren't afraid? If you weren't afraid and driven by fear, what would you do? And that was one of the premier issues. Once I answered that question, that encouraged me to retire, start my own business. I didn't want to look back at 65 and say what would have been. Didn't want to do that. Again, with the lump sum, hey, I only needed to get 3% return on my money to be, you know, over time, be the break-even point for taking the normal annuity pension. And, you know, I should be able to get that pretty easily. So I was letting fear drive my decisions or inhibit me from going down a path. And that's a great question for you. What would you do if you weren't afraid? So, hey, you know, you hear things like when you're trying to deploy a reliability journey, we've always done it this way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I need to hire planners and reliability engineers. I need investment first. Once we get caught up on emergency work and our backlog, we'll start this reliability journey. The plant manager canceled all training, so I can't start a reliability engineer or reliability journey. We've tried the best practices and they didn't work. You know, you hear all those things. Actually, the reliability community, which I'm a part of, we owned a lot of these, I'll say, non-truths. This does not need to be the way you deploy a reliability journey. 61 other videos will show you another path. You can do things the traditional way that works. It takes years, takes a lot of investments, takes a steady sponsor throughout those years, or you can have a waste focus and you can really do a lot of work independently and provide money for future investment. You know, and a little warning here, this is going to sting a little bit for some of you. A big issue we have in reliability is a lack of leadership. 99% of us want to manage. We're making decisions inside of our little comfort zone box of how we've always done things. Leadership involves overcoming fear and the fear of being wrong, making a mistake, fear of embarrassment, Fear of embarrassment, a lot of papers written on that. It drives a lot of business decisions. You take the safe route because embarrassment, of doing something wrong is huge, especially with males. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you do on your reliability journey? What would you do next week if you weren't afraid? Leadership is not the absence of fear. It's being bold enough to take the risk for a better tomorrow. A couple examples. Are you bold enough to cancel PMs that are not based on failure mode? I found about 50% in my plants, 50% were based on fear, not based on failure mode. We're doing condition monitoring already. Why are we doing this time-based maintenance? Bold enough to make the shift to condition monitoring from time-based maintenance that's been tried and true. Most people run parallel systems. They'll have a condition monitoring practice, and then they'll have time-based maintenance practices just because their fear of failure, fear of embarrassment. Are you bold enough to change the expectations of planners, even though your top planner, Joe, with 35 years in seniority and he knows everything, he's probably going to retire if you change his expectations. So are you bold enough to make those changes and do the right thing because you're not driven by fear? Are you bold enough to go out and do wrench time assessments to see reality of kitting, staging, planning, and problem solving, to see what's really going on? Are you that bold enough of a leader? Are you bold enough to add a job kidder? Even though you're not getting all the planned work done in a given week, you don't have enough resources, but you're bold enough to say, I'm going to take a person away from being a mechanic and have them being a kidder because it's going to increase my wrench time and we're going to get more work done. Are you bold enough to do that? Are you bold enough to reorganize engineering activities? If you got 5 engineers, are you bold enough to reorganize the responsibilities to 4 individuals and freeing up the 5th person to do pure strategic reliability work, to get off the hamster wheel? Are you bold enough to do that? Are you bold enough to stand up in front of 100 of your craftspersons and say, we're going to do something different. We're going to run an experiment for the next 90 days. And if we're wrong, you'll look at me. If this doesn't work, you look at me. But I want you to give it a chance. Here's why. Here's the picture of hope that I'll paint for you in the future. Even though you're going to get heckling from the 40-year veterans, like, we've done this before. You're the 10th person to come in and take us on a reliability journey, Joe. The process to best practices is tactically easy. There's steps. You can get a manual, step 1, step 2, step 3. But emotionally, are you ready for it? Last question again. What would you do on your reliability journey if you weren't afraid? What would you do Monday if you weren't afraid? This is Joe of Lean-Driven Reliability. One of the best things you can do is hire a coach. That's me. I've got other references if I'm too busy. But this stuff isn't that hard. Get a coach, find somebody that's done it before, help them drive out that fear of failure because they've done it. They'll give you the confidence. Please, if I can be at any assistance to you, send me an email. I'll respond to comments here, all to help you on your journey. It's been a great 1 year of retirement. Thank you.